My name is Clara Thompson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paolini and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Talking Tennis stream. Today, we're going to do a bit of a late US Open doubles review, and what better person to be joined with than the Tennis Tribe's Will. Will, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Excited to talk doubles. We're a little late, like you said, for the US Open recap, but with our schedules, it's hard to kind of plan around, and hopefully we can get everybody up to date on US Open and then as well as kind of the end of the year, what to look for on the doubles tour.
Yeah, exactly. And now we've had a couple of weeks to sort of think about it. We've kind of got more insight and what this might mean for the future, the rest of the year, and potentially next season as well. So, yeah, I think we should just kind of get into this if you're ready to do so. I think we should maybe start with the men's doubles. I mean, as a whole, I think throughout the US Open doubles, there was a lot of surprises from my point of view. I mean, you were on site at the US Open. Did you get a feel of like the doubles tournament was not wide open, but a lot of the top seeds were falling out in all draws?
Yeah, the seeding with the doubles is always kind of strange because you'll have, like for example, the team that won, Purcell and Thompson, right? They were unseeded at Wimbledon and made the finals and had like 5 or 6 championship points, right?
Yeah.
But even though they were unseeded at Wimbledon, everybody knew they were one of the best doubles teams in the world, right? Their record on the year to that point was something like 27-4. Max Purcell has won major title in doubles previous to that. So everybody kind of recognizes that he's one of the best doubles players in the world anyways. So honestly, I don't put a whole lot of weight on the seedings. I am looking at the draw now, and it looks like on the men's side, all 8 teams in the quarterfinals were seeded. Now, it wasn't, of course, the top 8 teams. We had the 16 seed, the 13 seed, the 10 seed. So I don't think there was anything like any Cinderella runs exactly. I guess the only one that probably surprised me a little bit was Lamans and Withrow making the finals. That was kind of a breakthrough for them, and it was really fun to see them do so well because previously they always seemed to not be able to get past that round of 16 or quarterfinals at a major. So that was probably the biggest, I guess, if you'd call it a surprise to me. They're still certainly a good team, but I wouldn't have picked them to make the semis.
Yeah, I suppose with Lamers and Withrow, even more of a surprise in that aspect would be them beating Raman Salisbury, who had obviously won the title the 3 previous years. So, yeah, as that on the screen you can see that. Was that a big surprise to you? Were you expecting them to go for a 4th?
I mean, if you asked me before the tournament, I talked with Hanlon about this, who couldn't join us today, but I talked with him about it before the tournament, and we said, like, if you ask me pick Raymond Salisbury or the field, like, I'll still take the field. I don't think that anybody's like that dominant to where you'd take them over the field like you might, Nadal at Roland Garros, 5 years ago or something like that. So it didn't surprise me a ton that they didn't win the tournament. It surprised me that Lamans and Withrow beat them. It seemed like, obviously they had won it 3 years in a row. Lamans and Withrow, like I said, had not made a deep run at a major to this point, although everybody knows that they are a good team. And they seem to really find another gear with their returns during this tournament, which has always been kind of their Achilles heel. They've always been fantastic servers. They have good serve plus ones. They're good at the net, but they struggle with the return at times. And I don't know if it's due to hard work and it's finally paying off, or maybe they changed something tactically. I didn't get to watch a ton or notice any tactical changes, but they definitely returned better, and it paid off in their semifinal run.
Yeah, and going back to the title winners, Thompson and Purcell. I mean, obviously you mentioned how good of a team they are together. Also, they're compatriots; they know each other very well. But they did obviously face a bit of heartbreak at Wimbledon, as you mentioned, having those championship points and losing that final. Did it surprise you that they were able to bounce back so quickly? Because obviously they could have easily had a lot of baggage going into this Grand Slam.
Yeah, no, not at all. They've been one of the best teams throughout the year. Like I said, even going into Wimbledon, they had one of the best records on the year. They racked up like 3 or 4 titles even prior to Wimbledon, but most of them were smaller 250 tournaments. I think they won here in Dallas and maybe Houston and 1 or 2 other tournaments. And yeah, they were just playing at a really high level. And Purcell, like I said earlier, has been one of the best doubles players in the world for a while. And I think it just took a little bit more, I don't know, team chemistry or communication or you might call it like teaching from Purcell to Thompson to turn Thompson into just a slightly better doubles player than maybe he was previously. And, with Max kind of calling the shots, I imagine, on the team, since he's certainly more of the doubles specialist between the two of them. I don't think it was surprising at all to see them come back and play so well. And they only dropped 1 set, I believe, during the whole tournament. And that was like in the second round. So they were really, really playing at a high level. And it was a super fun team to watch as well.
Yeah, and they beat Kravitz and Purcell in the final. What do you think the key was to that win was, winning that final, especially after having the heartbreak of Wimbledon?
Yeah. I watched the final, and really Max, pretty much anytime he's playing a doubles match, he is probably the best player on the court. So for me, the wild card is Jordan. Like, can Jordan play doubles at a high level? And he has been throughout this season. So I think maybe previously, if you looked at last year, anytime Jordan has played doubles, Max might be the best player on the court and Jordan's the worst doubles player on the court. Obviously not singles player, but he might be the worst doubles player on the court. And it's like, can Max lift him up enough? But this year they've played more doubles together, and I think that's kind of paid off, and Jordan has raised his level a lot. So that was kind of the X factor for me. As far as like strategy and tactics, I just felt like they served and returned better. And honestly, people ask me, all the time, what's the difference in this match? And 80% of the time it comes down to just serves and returns, right? Tennis is not a super complicated sport, and we always remember some of these like highlight long rallies, but really, especially in doubles, like the rally length is 3-4 shots on average, somewhere in between there. And that means, whoever serves and returns better is going to win the match.
Yeah, and going back to a match earlier in their run to the title, Purcell and Thompson beat the top seeds Granollers and Ceballos, and obviously you can see it in 2 ways. There's been a lot of talk about Granollers and Ceballos. Obviously they're the top seeds, number 1. They've had lots of form on the tour and even at Grand Slams, but they still haven't got over the line. Do you see this as like another missed opportunity, or do you see it as they lost to the champions and that's kind of the way it is?
Yeah, kind of. I would imagine. I don't think they care, but from our perspective, like, it doesn't look quite as bad because they lost to the team that ended up winning the tournament, and that team only dropped 1 set the entire tournament. So that's like, I guess, a consolation prize, but I know they want to win one, and honestly, they deserve one. I think this was the first major this year that um, they did not reach the semifinals. They lost to them in the quarters. So their consistency over the years has just been really, really impressive. And they're both very likable guys. I talked with them in Miami, and they deserve a major in my mind, and I kind of am rooting for them. I hope they get one at some point, but we will have to wait till next year to see if that can happen.
Yeah, and even though they haven't won the Grand Slam, they have still qualified for the ACP finals at the end of the year, along with Aravalo and Pavic. And with their US Open title, Thompson and Purcell have moved themselves up to third. Do you think that, Purcell and Thompson will be, I think it's pretty likely that they'll be now qualifying for the finals. What would you think?
Yeah. I imagine they'll be in there. Fourth is Bolelli and Vavasori, who have had a great year. They've made 2 finals, I believe, in majors, Australian and then Roland Garros. But Pana and Ebden are in 5th. They had a good start to the year, but they've kind of trailed off the second half of the season. They won the Australian Open and have just not been able to click, I guess, the last 6 months or so. And then Kravitz and Poots, who we talked about, made the finals here in New York, are in 6th. And then it gets interesting. The 7 through 9 spots are pretty tight. You have Hilliavara and Patton, who won Wimbledon in 7th, and then Lamans and Withrow, who we talked about, jumped all the way up to 8th with their semifinal run. And then Kulov and Mektic, who won Indian Wells earlier this year, are not too far behind that 8th spot in 9th. So it'll be interesting to see. But one other thing to note about the year-end race is that this might be, and we said this last year in August before the U.S. Open, and they won the U.S. Open, but this might be the first year that Rahm and Salisbury don't qualify for the year-end finals. They're sitting in 11th right now, and they're it looks like about 1,000 points out of 8th. So they'll have to perform well throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, they're going to need a good Asian swing, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know for definite, but does in the singles they have the rule about the top 20 in the race, if they win a Grand Slam, would that apply to Heliavara and Patton, who obviously won Wimbledon?
Oh yeah, that does. Thanks for the reminder. Yeah, 100%. So they're in. That means that gets weird if they drop out of the top 8, because then that 8th spot is not going to qualify. That applies to the men's side. I believe it does not apply to the women's side.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So it's very getting quite close towards those 5 to 8 places, but it'll be interesting to see how the Asian swing shakes that up. So as we move on to the women's doubles, there's been actually a comment in the chat about that. Obviously, Ludmila Kichenok and Elena Ostapenko were the champions. It's their first Grand Slam title together. Ostapenko's second Grand Slam, well, both their second Grand Slam, because Kichenok had previously won a mixed doubles title. They won. There was a VAR challenge on match point, I believe, which is something that Brazy in the chat is commented on. Is that something that you saw, and what did you think of it?
I did not see it. Remind me what happened. I remember seeing it on Twitter.
I think I'm in the same boat. I've definitely seen it, but it's not sticking in my mind. But the Brazy.
Oh, it looks like it was. It looks like it was a singles match.
Oh, interesting, because Brazy is saying that it was about. Oh, here we go. Right, Kichenok claimed a foul. The umpire called a foul shot on Kichenok's volley, and then claimed it hit in 2 motions. But I think Kichenok challenged it and got it overturned. And
That's a separate thing. That's not Haddad. That doesn't involve Haddad Maya. I do remember that. So, Kichenok had this volley on championship point where it like hit a racket and then she followed through, it hit a racket again, and then she either hit a winner or forced an error. Yeah, it looks like John said Haddad Maya was singles, so I feel good about myself that I don't, or at least a little better that I don't remember that. If that had been doubles, that would be a problem. So yeah, Kichenok had basically double touched the ball, and they were trying to see if it was one motion. And as soon as it went to review, the announcer said it, and you could just feel it watching, like, oh my gosh, like, because the problem was, I guess, this Haddad Maya incident, and I think there have been one or two others, either in the U.S. Open or tournaments leading up. Like, they implemented this review system, and the chairs still got it wrong in a few cases. So when this happened, you were thinking like, oh my gosh, if the umpire screws this up and it affects like literally the championship point and the winner of the U.S. Open women's doubles final, then this is going to be like a disaster for the review system, for the umpire, for the tournament. And luckily, when they went to the review, it was immediately obvious that it was the right call. Like, it was a double touch, and it was two distinct motions. So they lost that point and then ultimately won, I think, a few points later. So it didn't have an effect, but yeah, you could feel it as soon as it happened based on like what had happened previously, how crazy that could have been.
Yeah, it just goes to show that it can work if used correctly. But obviously, I mean, Kichenok and Ostapenko have been a pretty consistent team for the last few years, really. And I believe they reached the Australian Open final this year, but obviously lost. So it's kind of it's their breakthrough, really, getting their first Grand Slam title together. Do you expect this to be the first of multiple, or do you think this is kind of their pinnacle?
If they stick together, which I mean they have for a while now, I don't see any reason why they can't win another. I mean, there's a lot of competition. Obviously, it's not easy to win a major title, but you know, Shea Su Wei is getting a little older. She's had a not super strong second half of the year. Siniakova is obviously not going anywhere. And then, who knows who will kind of rise up the doubles ranks from the younger players. But I would imagine that, sure, like I could totally see them winning another one. This year, it does seem like they've stepped up a bit. Australia, they made the finals. They're up to number one in the race, which I don't think they've ever been number one in the race this far into the season before. So, yeah, I mean, they've been the best team this year, and you couldn't have said that even without Grand Slams any of their previous years together. So it does seem like they've stepped up. So they certainly could win another major.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like the hardcourt Grand Slams are where they've really thrived this year. An interesting point would be their opponents in the final. Obviously, you mentioned how seeds and doubles are not necessarily, foolproof of what's going to happen. And they beat the unseeded pair of Mladenovic and Zhang Shui. And obviously, everyone knows what's been happening with Zhang Shui on the singles court. It's been a tough few years, but it goes to show that the talent's very much still there on the doubles court. And Mladenovic is obviously a very, very strong doubles player herself.
Yeah, so I watched a couple of their matches actually, and I even saw them playing together in Toronto earlier in August. And I thought at the time, I was like, they're playing really good doubles, especially Mladenovic, who's like kind of focused more on singles this year. I don't know. I haven't spoken with her. I don't know why she decided to start playing a bit more doubles, I guess, this summer. But they both, when you see that unseeded team in the draw, it's like the Purcell Thompson thing from Wimbledon. Like, you wouldn't be shocked to see them make a deep run. They've both won Grand Slam titles in doubles. They were playing well, like I said, in Toronto. I think they lost a match like 10-8 in the quarters or semis, something like that. Or it might have even been like 12-10. So it was one of those unlucky matches where maybe they were the better team. And they were playing, really high level doubles and had played together, obviously recently. So that chemistry was there. and they were both returning really well. Mladenovic is one of, I'd never studied her a whole lot. I think because the past couple of years she has focused more on singles. So I watched her a bit more over the last month, and she's one of the best net players in the world. She reminds me a bit of Katie McNally with her defensive volleys. She's able to just have quick hands. If you have like a short forehand and you rip it at her, she's going to react and she's going to put the ball by you, and it's going to be all happen very fast. So you really can't go at her at the net very often. And she does a great job of moving towards the middle and taking away kind of your highest percentage shot. And then Zheng Shui, even though she has struggled in singles the last year or so, she's still a great doubles player. She returns super well and is really solid from the baseline and can hold her own at the net as well.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned Shea and Mertens haven't had necessarily a very good second half of the season relative to the first half, and they actually lost to Zhang Shui and Mladenovic in the first round, which is a bit of a nightmare draw for them, really, this as a second seeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, nobody wanted to see them in the first round, or really at any point in the tournament, like I said. So that is a tough first round, but yeah, you'd still call that kind of a minor upset, I believe, because of Mertens and Shea's, I guess, recent history in terms of like the last year and then their history together as well.
Yeah, I mean, Shea and Mertens didn't actually win a single match in the US Open hardcourt swing this year, which is definitely a surprise given they're the second best team in the race this year, and I believe probably the top in the race prior to the US Open. So it's definitely been a less successful hardcourt swing, but still a very good year for Shea and Mertens. Once again, you obviously won the Australian Open to start the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're still second in the race as well.
Yeah.
So it looks like they've already qualified for the year-end finals. So maybe some time off for Shea will help, and they'll be able to come back and be a little better.
Yeah, it's Kichenok and Ostapenko and Shea and Mertens who've officially confirmed their qualification, and I think Dabrowski and Routliffe will probably be soon to follow them. Dabrowski and Routliffe, obviously, were the defending champions coming to this event and lost in the quarterfinals to Hao Qing Chan and Veronika Kudermetova. So, yeah, there's a few surprises, as well as, I suppose, one of the informed teams of the year in Jasmine Paolini and Sara Errani, obviously Olympic champions. They actually lost to, I suppose, the surprise package of Harriet Dart and Diane Parry. Did that catch you by surprise?
A little bit, but Paolini and Errani you don't want to see them on clay. On hard courts, they're not quite as strong, I would say. And Harriet Dart actually made the semifinals in doubles in Cincinnati the week before. So she was playing good doubles. She played with Ellen Perez, who I actually just spoke with yesterday, and we'll be sharing that podcast next week. So Harriet Dart was playing good doubles. Maybe she learned a few doubles things from Ellen, and I'd say, again, kind of a minor upset, but not a total shock. I mean, there were certainly some signs there that Harriet Dart had been playing good doubles. Yeah,
absolutely. And obviously, she can't win every tournament, but it's always a bit of a surprise when Siniakova isn't lifting the title. But in this case, I believe they lost in the semi-finals. Townsend and Siniakova. I could be just double check that.
It was the semifinals. It was a match I watched. I actually was home for this one. I had flown back the day before, but they lost to Mladenovic and Shui, and it was a kind of roller coaster of a match, up and down, 3-set match, 6-3 in the third. I think Siniakova and Townsend were up 3-1 in that third set, and then lost 5 games in a row. And it was just very small margins. It seemed like most of the games were 40-30 or deuce games. They were both playing, at a pretty high level. And ultimately, Mladenovic and Shui came out on top. But Siniakova and Townsend are in a good position to make the year-end final still. And they're still playing at a very high level, so I wouldn't be too concerned about them going forward. It looks like they're in 7th, and they are about 300 to 400 points clear of 9th, but they're one of those teams, they're both healthy. If they need to enter a 250 and get some points like that, I think they could win the thing without an issue. So that's a team I would be surprised to not make the year-end final.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's not too long now to go until the finals. Obviously, got the Asian swing where players will be trying to get the big points before the end of the season. But really, it's looking like you've got the top two I've already mentioned, and you've got probably Routledge and Dabrowski, then probably Dolohad and Kravchik, and Irani and Paulini are probably, and then obviously you've got Siniakova, as you mentioned. It's looking pretty solid for, say, the top 5, I would say. And then would you say that then it gets a bit more tense, 7th and 8th?
Yeah, honestly, I think probably that top 7 is going to be in there. The difference between 7 and 8 looks like 350-ish points. And then when you look at 8, 9, 10, 11, although 11's not going to count because that's Siniakova and Storm Hunter, which is just speaks to how good Siniakova is at doubles.
Yeah.
So 8, 9, 10, they're all within like 100 points of each other. So it's all very, very close.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying how good Siniakova could be with any partner. And I suppose now we ought to go on to the mixed doubles, which is obviously a very fun tournament. You get to see some random pairings and pairings you wouldn't necessarily imagine, but it's actually kind of a more conventional pairing that went on to win the title in the Italian duo of Sara Errani and Andrea Vavasori. It's actually Vavasori's first major title, I believe, and Sara Errani's first in mixed. I mean, they were the third teams going into it, and they kind of lived up to that high seeding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had a great tournament. I didn't get a chance to watch them. I did watch some of the mixed matches while I was there. And I watched Vavasori actually in the men's draw in a very good match against Poots and Kravitz. But they've both had great years on their respective, men's and women's doubles tours. So to see them do well in mixed, yeah, I mean, they deserve the seeding and they deserve the title. They've both been great doubles players this year. Irani's, had a bit of a, I guess, resurgence in doubles this year. It's helped a lot that Paolini's had such a good year, obviously making the finals and singles of Wimbledon and the French Open. So it was, not too surprising to see them win the title, and interesting to see them face Donald Young in a major final, who hasn't played a lot of tennis lately. So that was a crazy run for him and Taylor Townsend.
And that's the thing is, although Sara Errani and Vavasori got the title, I felt like a lot of the story was actually around their opponents in Townsend and Donald Young. It's Donald Young's final match. His final match was a Grand Slam final, and it's kind of, I know he didn't go on to win the title, but it doesn't get much better than that to play a final match home major. Yeah,
it was a super good story. Honestly, it was one of the stories of the tournament in terms of the doubles this year. The last several years, and I think I tweeted this out like at the beginning of the tournament. If you look at the last maybe 3 years, I might be getting some of these years wrong, but it's within a year or two. So there's been during week 1 a doubles match either on Ash, and I mean scheduled on Ash. We had some matches on Ash and Armstrong week 1, but they were moved. They weren't scheduled. So you had the Williams sisters play their first round doubles match. That was on Ash. I think it was 2 years ago. Kyrgios and Kokkinakis played on Louis Armstrong in week 1. I think that was also 2 years ago. Coco Gauff and Jessica Pegula, who are not playing doubles together anymore, at least for the remainder of this year, they were on a grandstand for their first or second round match last year. So you didn't have as much of that like tennis star power in the doubles draws this year. So this was the story that kind of took over. And it was a great story, and it was cool to see them, win some close matches and make a deep run. And I'm sure it's something Donald will, be a career highlight for him, because it was a great run.
Yeah, absolutely. And although they lost that final, it was two pretty tight sets. And just someone in the chat, Brazy's commenting about how Irani Vavasori worked. He's suggesting that Vavasori protected Irani's serve by being so active at the net. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have to, right? Like, if your partner has a weak second serve, a lot of players get, I guess there's a few ways to handle that. One is you can play two back and decide like we're on defense for this. Or you can say, I'm going to be aggressive anyways, and I'm going to get burned down the line some. They're going to hit a few winners. I'll miss a few volleys, but I'm also going to force errors by being active at the net. I might even shank a few winners over the net. He plays very tight to the net. He's used to that in the men's game. So I think that's the strategy he chose, and it obviously worked out for them. It looks like Brazi also says Siniakova seems comfortable on either deuce or ad sides. Yeah, I think so. I mean, she's such a good doubles player. I think she's really comfortable anywhere. In the mixed, she was playing the deuce court, I believe. She was teamed up with John Piers, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the reasons she's able to do that is because her backhand is so strong. So from the ad court, her backhand, she can rip it cross court, she can rip it down the line, and she likes to get to the net with her forehand volley in the middle from the ad court, which is a super tough position to be in for the opponents, trying to rally with her forehand volley in the middle. And then in the ad court, her backhand, again, is her strength. So she has that strength in the middle of the court. And in doubles, you generally want to control the middle of the court. So she has a lot of benefits on both sides just because she's such a good doubles player.
Yeah, and I suppose, I mean, I don't know if you've found this as well, but with obviously the United Cup is having its second year this year, the Olympics has played a big part. Have you found that's had an impact on doubles this year, a bigger impact than most years?
I don't know, not that I can tell. Yeah, I think the biggest thing for doubles is like having tennis stars play. So the last few years, golf and Pagula have been super helpful for doubles. They, even last year at the US Open, I think it was on ESPN or ESPN2 during week one, their match was. This year, if you're watching on ESPN or ESPN2, I don't think they showed any doubles matches, and probably not even any doubles highlights. If you look at if you're watching like during week one, a singles match at the bottom right, they're showing all the scores. They weren't showing any double scores, right? They were only showing the single scores. So for the casual fan who doesn't really know a lot about tennis, a lot of them watching on TV may not even know that there's like a doubles draw, because there's just no TV coverage or advertising for it, unless some of those tennis stars are playing, like Coco or Pagula or Serena or Kyrgios, whoever it might be.
Yeah, I suppose from a UK perspective, I think doubles probably got the most light on it at the Olympics, because obviously you do have those more, dream pairings as such. And obviously Andy Murray obviously had a lot of that attention. But and obviously there was a lot more prior to the Olympics. There's a lot more same nationality pairings as they built up to that. But
Sure.
What would you have any suggestions or recommendations of what needs to be done to kind of get doubles on the big court, the big screens, etc.?
Yeah, I've got a lot. Yeah, I was talking with Ellen Perez, like I said yesterday, and I asked her the question that I ask everybody on my podcast: how do we make doubles more popular? And one of the things she said, or the thing she said, was to get it on bigger courts. And that would certainly help. It's like one, especially week one. Like if you go to these majors, or like Miami or Indian Wells, week one, the doubles courts are kind of overflowing a lot of the time. Like there's not enough seats. And at Indian Wells earlier this year, when I was there, I was sitting on court 6, I think. Court 5's next to it, or Stadium 5 and Stadium 6. And these are pretty big courts. And Stadium 6, where I was, had all doubles like specialists. And Stadium 5 had 2 singles player. It was a singles match, and it was not, neither player was American. And I looked over at Stadium 5, and it was like maybe a third full, and Stadium 6 was totally full. There were actually people like in the top of Stadium 5 trying to watch over to Stadium 6 because they wanted to watch the doubles. And Indian Wells is certainly not like a typical tournament. I think it's probably the best doubles tournament. But if tournaments can start to recognize that and then put doubles on some main courts, I think that could help a lot. Especially use it as a kind of appetizer. This is a phrase I got from Craig O'Shaughnessy, who's talked about it with me before. He says like doubles should be kind of an appetizer for singles. So if you've got the night session starting at 7 o'clock on Arthur Ashe, throw a doubles match on at 5 o'clock during that dead time. And you can even do it while people are like transitioning out from day session to night session, and just have them play. And I think having doubles on some of those bigger courts will bring a little bit more awareness to it. The other thing that, of course, needs to happen is just better marketing and social media, and then the players will get more popular. Because I mentioned earlier, doubles does better when tennis stars are playing. And I say tennis stars instead of single stars very intentionally, because I don't like consider Coco Gauff a single star, although she is. She's really a tennis star, because people don't care if they watch Coco Gauff play singles or doubles. They just want to watch Coco Gauff play tennis, right? And I've been to a number of her doubles matches, and a lot of the fans who are sitting there in the stands, they're like, I like watching Coco play doubles better than singles. Like, it's so much more fun. So I just see the potential there. And I think if we kind of get all these pieces aligned in the right way and give it the support it deserves, I think it can be a lot more popular than it is.
Yeah, exactly. Like you mentioned, when it is there for people to watch, people do watch it. It's just people aren't going to look for it if they don't have it put in front of them. That's what it needs. It needs the exposure that it deserves,
Sure.
really, and getting the stars. But just kind of looking back on the Grand Slam doubles year as a whole, I just had a quick look at all the winners this year. I mean, there's actually only been one team that have won more than one Grand Slam, and that's Shea Siwei and Jan Zielinski, which is interesting because usually I find that mixed doubles probably creates the most change in pairings.
Yeah, that is interesting. Obviously, Siniakova has 2, but with different partners.
Yeah.
It's been kind of it's been an interesting year in terms of the majors and kind of the year overall, because you've seen some of these teams carry momentum from 2023, like Bobana and Ebden, start off the year well and then like slowly kind of not play as well, or at least not get the same results in the later half of the year. Same for Shea and Mertens. Even though Shea has had a lot of success on the mixed court, they've not had a great second half of the season. And then Siniakova starting the year with Storm Hunter. They made the semis, I believe, in Australia, and then Storm gets hurt. And then Siniakova needs a new partner, wins 2 straight majors with different partners. And now her and Taylor Townsend are likely going to be in the year-end finals. And then you've seen some other stories on the men's side. Raymond Salisbury have struggled a bit more this year. They didn't have their good U.S. Open like they typically do. So they're on the outside looking in for the year-end finals. So it feels like a bit of a transition period, maybe, especially as some of the older players kind of phase out. Like Bopana is 44, I believe. Ram is definitely getting up there as well. I don't know how long he wants to continue to play. And then you've got some of these younger teams who are starting to step up and play well. So it's been a really fun year to track and watch. And I'm excited to see how things kind of shake out here during the Asia swing as we go into the year in finals.
Yeah, it's definitely created for an interesting year, as there's not been one team that's necessarily stood out for the entire 12 months. But also someone, Brazy, asking another question in the chat, is firing questions at you today. He's asking about Indian Wells. They had a mixed doubles event this year. Did you like it? What did you think of it?
I was so happy that they tried it. I was at Indian Wells, but I didn't get to go to the mixed doubles event because I was working with a team helping them with strategy and scouting that was still in the tournament during that. So all my time was spent with them. So unfortunately, I didn't get to go to it. I heard there was decent crowds. I heard it was a lot of fun. It was not televised at all, which I think they need to do that next time. The selection process, there was some, I wouldn't call it controversy. That would be too strong of a word, but there was some confusion, I guess, around the selection process for it. But honestly, like, they need to be experimenting with more things like this. And especially as these larger 1,000 level events become, 12-day events or 14-day events, there needs to be more content, right? Like, these doubles players are going to be sitting around playing a tournament over the course of 10 days, and they only have 4 matches, and it's doubles. So it's not quite as like taxing on your body as singles, and the matches are a little bit shorter. At the 1,000 level events, they're playing a 10-point tiebreaker for the third. It's no ad. So there needs to be more content. And I think mixed would be a great way to do that. So I hope they continue to experiment with things like that. In terms of like how the tournament went overall, yeah, like I said, I didn't attend it. So I'm not sure, but I honestly, I don't really care. I was just glad to see them experimenting, and I want to continue to see that because eventually they'll figure that out. And mixed is something that is unique to tennis because no other sports you have men and women competing with and against each other on the exact same court or field or arena. And it's something we really should take advantage of to help grow the sport.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously you said about experimenting. The ATP have kind of tried to do a few things that's like certain selected tournaments with shot clock and fan movement and all things like that. Do you like those innovations, or do you like the attempt to try and switch things up to bring more eyes to doubles?
Yeah, I mean, again, I like that they're experimenting. Most of the changes to me were product changes, and I don't think doubles has a product problem. I think I've talked about this on the show before, but I'm sure some people listening haven't heard before. So I categorize everything into 2 things. Like, there's product problems and then there's marketing problems. And I don't think doubles has a product problem. Like, I think as it is, people love to watch it. There are plenty of doubles fans, but they're not getting any marketing. So, if you look at a particular tournament's Twitter account or Instagram account, it's gotten better the last year or 2, but it's still not enough. It might be 3 out of every 100 posts are about doubles, right? And like I mentioned earlier, it's not on TV. They're not showing the scores on TV. So a lot of people who are casual fans don't really know that it exists. And they look at tennis and they're like, well, they're not really showing me any doubles, so it must not be that important, right? So if it can get some of that marketing, I think that would help. And most of those changes that they tried in Madrid and some of the other tournaments were product changes rather than marketing changes. Now, the free fan movement, I think, is huge. I do think that is a marketing change. I think it just makes for a better fan experience, and the fans ultimately are the customers. So I think they should be able to move around the stadium. The thing they did in DC where they mic'd up the doubles players, Heliovara did a great job with this in his match. I think that was super cool. Like, do things like that, like experiment as much as you can to make it entertaining and fun. But ultimately, I want to see more marketing on the doubles side. And then from there, some of the players' stories are told a little bit better. So the fans get to know the players more. And then all of a sudden, they become tennis stars as well, just like Coco Golf or whoever, even though they are a doubles specialist.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of, I suppose, wrap things up, because I think we've covered all things US Open and more, but I suppose as the Grand Slam season is now come to an end for 2024, is there a moment for you that, like, your favourite moment, a standout moment? Is there a few that kind of come to mind when I mentioned the Grand Slam season this year?
Yeah, what comes to mind now, since you're showing Harry there in the photo, is the Wimbledon final. If you haven't watched Harry play, you definitely should, especially in person. His celebrations are second to none, and they won the Wimbledon title. He falls to his knees and is like screaming, and he's a really entertaining player. And that Wimbledon final was really epic. I think I called it actually for y'all. Hanlon and I were on here, and it turned out to be like the longest match of the year because it was 7-6, 6-7, 7-6. And by the end of it, Hanlon and I were exhausted, but it was such a fun match to watch. They had fended off like 6 match points. And both of their stories were really cool, where Harry had quit tennis and then he came back in like 2017. And the last 4 years or so, he's been a top 20-ish doubles player. So it was, I would say that match stands out the most. And then, of course, the backstory to that is Purcell and Thompson followed it up with the U.S. Open win, which is really great.
Yeah, I suppose hindsight's everything when you see where that loss took them, and they obviously put that behind them very quickly. And obviously, from a British perspective, that final had a whole different meaning in terms of Henry Patterson, and also the crowd went really crazy for it. And that just shows what doubles can do and what the place it should and can have on the biggest stages. Because I think that was probably one of the standout moments of Wimbledon, especially the final week of Wimbledon. It was a really big moment in the UK, and it needs to kind of stay on that trajectory rather than dip and then come back for the Grand Slams or for random moments here and there. I think the tours really need to do it as much as possible to keep it at that level. And just before we let you go, Brazy has asked a final question. Which of the top 10 singles players could feasibly win a double slam in the future on the ATP side?
Top 10. So I'm pulling up the top 10 now. This might be easier. Huh?
Are you rolling out Medvedev?
Yeah. So I was about to say that this might be easier to use process of elimination. So Medvedev is out. Zverev has played some good doubles. A lot of this is just about like what they focus on, right? Like I talked about this on during the Olympics a little bit, like Nadal and Alcaraz losing to Ram and Krajicek, and a lot of people get into that debate about doubles specialists versus singles players, and the singles players could do so well. And like, there's no doubt in my mind, like if Alcaraz focused on doubles for whatever reason, like if tomorrow the ATP said, we're making the prize money for doubles double the prize money for singles, and he was like, okay, I'm going to focus on doubles, like he'd be number 1 in the world in doubles in like, I don't know, a year or two. Cause he's just such a talented tennis player. So, I get that. But as far as top 10, who could actually win based on like how things are now, I don't think it'll be Alcaraz because I don't think he's going to play a lot of doubles. Rublev has had a lot of doubles success in the past, and he's actually a very good doubles player because he takes the ball so early from the baseline. So if he teamed up with someone who was really strong at the net, and then he played back at the baseline, they could kind of dominate in that way. And because he takes the ball so early, he kind of neutralizes the opposing net player. It makes it very hard to poach on. And all of these singles players have returned so well. So that's another thing that helps a lot. Obviously, Fritz won bronze in the Olympics, but with his volleys, I don't think he would win a doubles Grand Slam. So I don't know. As far as the best doubles players in the top 10, I would say Rublev, Zverev, and maybe Hurkacz. Dimitrov probably as well. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but maybe it gives you an idea. Ultimately, for them, it's going to be like, do they want to try to win a doubles Grand Slam, right? And that's something I can't really predict.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it'd be nice to see maybe more of the top ATP players playing doubles like there are in the WTA, a bit more of the top singles players playing doubles. But yeah, it's been very interesting to get your insights on the US Open and the year as a whole, and kind of what could be for the future. So thank you very much for coming on and joining us, Will.
Yeah, thanks a ton for having me. It's always a lot of fun, and yeah, we'll do it again probably in a couple months here to wrap up the season. Yeah,
definitely. I look forward to that. So thank you everyone for watching. Hit a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and join us next time. And in the meantime, watch more doubles.
That's right. Watch more doubles.
Cheers, everyone.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.